Okay, so now we've completed part 107 in its entirety, talked about part 48 in registration. Now we're going to talk about part 89, which covers remote identification. This part is much quicker. Remote ID is one of the more recent regulatory updates in the UAS industry. Essentially, it's a major step forward for the FAA to be able to integrate drones as a permanent piece of the national airspace system. What Remote ID does is it allows air traffic control and law enforcement to monitor the location and altitude of your drone and the operator. This is essentially a drone license plate, and it must broadcast location, altitude, velocity of the aircraft, as well as the controller location. All aircraft that require registration also must comply with RID. So if you have to register your drone, you also have to make sure it's RID compliant in order to operate it. If operated commercially, this is all aircraft under 55 pounds. And if operated recreationally, it's aircraft under 55 pounds but over 250 grams, or 0.55 pounds. Remote ID became mandatory for manufacturers as of September 16th, 2022. You can check on the FAA website to know if your drone is compliant, but if you bought your drone and it was manufactured after September 16th, 2022, it should be compliant. It became mandatory for pilots to be compliant as of September 16th, 2023. Aircraft must also be labeled showing it is RID compliant through the registration number. The Remote ID regulation gives us three methods of compliance. Number one is standard RID. This is a built-in hardwired capability for all drones to be able to broadcast this RID information. This was required after September 16th, 2022. So again, if you bought your drone and it was manufactured after this date, it should be standard RID compliant. Number two is a broadcast module. This is for older drones. This is FAA approved modules that can be attached to the outside or the inside of older drones that broadcast the same exact information, but it's basically an add-on for your drone. The third way to comply, if you don't have standard ID or a broadcast module, you can fly in what's called an FAA recognized identification area, or FRIA. These are basically special airspaces around the country that the FAA sets aside for flying clubs to be able to operate drones in a safe, deconflicted environment without remote ID requirements. If a drone was registered prior to the compliance of RID, it must be updated, whether it's a standard RID or a module. RID modules must be linked to individual drone registrations under Part 107. If you're a recreational flyer, registrations can be used for multiple drones, but if you're flying under Part 107, it's one drone per remote ID. You can check the FAA website for compliant drones as well as modules. So just like with operations over people compliance, you can use the same FAA website to check to see if different drones and different remote ID modules are remote ID compliant. So same website, filter by type. Instead of operations over people, you can click on remote ID. And what this will give us a list of every module as well as every drone that has been approved as remote ID compliant. So in this case, say you have a Mini 3 Pro from DJI, you can check to see that it is in fact remote ID compliant. If you look on this list and you notice that your drone is not on this list, you can also check for different modules that you can buy that would be remote ID compliant. For example, you could buy a DroneTag Mini broadcast module and see that it is also FAA accepted as an approved remote ID module.